Love and Marriage, Jessie's Story. Hi, my name is Jessie. I never imagined my life would take the turn it did. But here I am, sharing my journey. I grew up in a normal, middle-class family. Life was simple, predictable, and safe. I went to school, had friends, and spent weekends with my family. But I always believed that love could change everything. I always dreamed of a partner who understood me, accepted me for who I am, and walked with me through life's ups and downs. It all started when I met him. His name was Alex. We were introduced through mutual friends. And something about him felt different. He had this quiet confidence, a gentle smile, and eyes that seemed to look right into your soul. We started talking, sharing small things, laughing at silly jokes, and slowly, our conversations turned into long talks about life, dreams, and our future. I remember the first time I realized I loved him. We were sitting on a bench in the park, the sun setting behind the trees, painting everything golden. He reached for my hand, and I felt a warmth I had never felt before. At that moment, I knew that no matter what challenges lay ahead, I wanted to spend my life with him. But love, as beautiful as it is, often comes with challenges. Alex's family was traditional. They had expectations, rules, and boundaries. From the very beginning, I could sense that they were skeptical of me. I tried not to overthink it. I reminded myself that love is about patience, understanding, and proving yourself through actions. When we decided to get married, it wasn't easy. Alex's parents were hesitant. They questioned everything from my family background to my career, even my personality. I remember sitting in that room, trying to explain that I was sincere, that I loved their son, and that I only wanted to make him happy. They listened politely, but I could see doubt in their eyes. Our wedding day was a mix of joy and tension. On one hand, Alex and I were finally together as husband and wife. On the other hand, I knew that stepping into his house would bring a whole new set of challenges. I felt nervous, excited, and scared all at once. I promised myself that I would do everything I could to make peace, to show respect, and to gain their trust. The first week in his house was the hardest. No one spoke much. The atmosphere was cold. I tried to engage, asking simple questions, offering help with meals, and showing interest in their daily routines. But it felt like I was invisible. I would prepare dishes I thought they might like, but sometimes they didn't touch them. I would make small talk, but the answers were short and curt. I started feeling isolated, and at times, I wondered if I had made a mistake. One evening, I sat in my room, tears streaming down my face, thinking about everything. I called my best friend and confessed that I felt hopeless. She reminded me, Jessie, love is not just about two people. Sometimes you have to fight for acceptance, show patience, and prove your heart. I wiped my tears and decided that I would not give up. I began observing everything carefully. I noticed their routines, their likes, their dislikes, and even their fears. I realized that patience alone would not help me. I had to be smart. I needed to understand them, communicate subtly, and gradually break the ice. Slowly, I started small. I asked Alex's mom about her favorite recipes and tried cooking them. I offered to help with chores, but never in a way that seemed forced. I complimented genuine things her home, her cooking, her way of organizing the house. I realized that showing appreciation and respect mattered more than proving anything with words. Alex's father was a different challenge. He was strict, serious, and skeptical of every move I made. I understood that I had to show him my sincerity through actions, not explanations. I volunteered to assist with home projects, listened to his advice, and tried not to react defensively even when he criticized me. Every small gesture counted, and slowly, I saw his demeanor soften. During this time, Alex was my pillar. He never told me to stop, never forced me to change. but encouraged me to be myself while also respecting his family. His support gave me strength. I realized that love is not just about passion. It's about teamwork, strategy, and patience. As days turned into weeks, small breakthroughs happened. Alex's sister started including me in conversations. His mom smiled more often when I helped around the house. I even managed to make his father laugh once over a cooking mishap. It felt like climbing a mountain, step by step, but every small victory was worth it. I also learned about communication. There were moments of tension where I had to explain my perspective without sounding defensive. I shared how I felt, my intentions, and my love for Alex. I learned that expressing yourself calmly, respectfully, and honestly creates bridges even in difficult situations. One incident stands out. During a family gathering, I noticed subtle glances, whispers, and skepticism. I decided to step forward and take initiative. I prepared a small speech about how much I loved Alex, how I respected his family, and how I wanted to contribute positively to their lives. I spoke from my heart without exaggeration, without asking for approval. By the end, there was silence, but a warmth lingered. His parents looked at me differently, and Alex held my hand tightly. Through these experiences, I realized that love after marriage is not just about two people living together. It's about navigating relationships, understanding cultural or family dynamics, and creating harmony. I also realized that patience, kindness, and empathy are more powerful than arguments or explanations. By the end of the first month, things were slowly improving. I could feel a subtle shift in energy. Alex's family began to include me in their routines. There were still disagreements, moments of coldness, but the walls were cracking, and I was allowed to be part of their world. I learned that proving yourself is not about winning battles. It's about creating moments where trust grows naturally. I also learned that love requires strategy, courage, and emotional intelligence. I began keeping a journal, recording small victories, lessons learned, and moments of joy. These writings became my guide, reminding me that persistence pays off. Alex and I celebrated our first month together quietly. No grand gesture, just a good journey so far. I realized that love is a journey of patience, understanding, and mutual growth. Marriage was not the end. It was the beginning of a new chapter where challenges would test our bond, and small victories would create memories worth cherishing. Too. Living in Alex's house after marriage was nothing like I had imagined in my dreams. On the surface, everything seemed normal, clean, and organized. But the atmosphere carried an invisible weight. It wasn't hostility exactly, but it was far from warmth. The first few days were unbearable. Every movement I made seemed scrutinized. Every word I said seemed to be measured. I wanted to reach out, to connect, to belong. But there was a constant distance, a coldness that I couldn't penetrate. Alex tried to reassure me. "Jessie, don't worry. They just need time. You've been patient. And it will get better," he would say, holding my hand gently. I wanted to believe him, but every day was a test of patience, courage, and emotional endurance. I began questioning myself. Was I doing something wrong? Did I misread their behavior? Was I too eager, too pushy, or too inexperienced? Some mornings, I would wake up before everyone else, quietly walking around the house, trying to make small gestures of kindness. I would prepare breakfast, make the bed, or even tidy areas they usually handled themselves. My goal was simple: show respect, show effort, and maybe, just maybe, earn a smile or a kind word. But sometimes, my efforts went unnoticed. There were days I felt invisible, like a shadow walking silently through their routines. The loneliness was the hardest part. Alex had work, meetings, and responsibilities. He loved me deeply, but he couldn't always be present when his parents or siblings, questioned me silently with their eyes. There were moments I wanted to scream, to let out my frustration. But I knew anger would only widen the distance. Instead, I started writing everything down in my journal, my thoughts, my fears, my tiny victories, and even moments of despair. Writing became my therapy, a way to release emotions without confrontation. One evening, Alex's mother asked me a question about my family in a way that felt probing. I answered politely, keeping my voice calm, but inside, I felt the weight of judgment. Later, I confided in Alex, telling him how it made me feel. He listened patiently, holding my hand, reassuring me, and reminding me that my sincerity mattered more than their approval. I realized that patience alone was not enough. I needed a strategy, a way to subtly win their trust without forcing my presence. I started observing small habits, their preferred routines, favorite foods, hobbies, and even their jokes. I discovered that Alex's sister loved storytelling, and his father enjoyed gardening. Slowly, I began tailoring my actions to connect naturally. I would ask his sister to share a story from her day, or offer to help his father water the plants. These small gestures weren't grand, but they created openings for communication. There were also moments of doubt and insecurity. I often compared myself to what I imagined they expected a perfect daughter-in-law. Flawless, elegant, and completely adaptable. I realized quickly that chasing perfection was impossible. Instead, I decided to focus on authenticity. I could only be myself and show genuine care. Pretending to be someone I was not would have only created further distance. Some days were extremely challenging. One afternoon, I tried to engage in conversation during lunch. I complimented Alex's mother on the meal, asked about her childhood stories, and even shared a funny anecdote from my own life. She listened politely but gave only short responses. I felt my heart sink. Later, I cried quietly in my room, feeling the isolation and pressure. I remembered my mother's words, "Patience and understanding will open hearts." But it takes time. I clung to those words like a lifeline. I also faced indirect criticism. Alex's father would question small details of my behavior, how I arranged utensils, how I managed chores, even how I dressed. At first, I felt defensive. But then I realized that reaction would only make things worse. Instead, I adopted a calm approach, thanking him for the advice, and showing willingness to learn without taking offense. Gradually, this approach softened some of his strictness. Despite these challenges, Alex remained my anchor. His love, support, and reassurance gave me the courage to continue. He reminded me that building relationships takes time and that family acceptance could not be rushed. I learned to cherish small victories, a smile, a nod of approval, or a genuine conversation. Every small breakthrough was a reminder that persistence matters. During this period, I also learned the importance of empathy. I tried to understand their perspectives, their worries about their son, their protective instincts, and their fear of change. They had their traditions and expectations, and it was my responsibility to respect them while also asserting my presence respectfully. Balancing these dynamics was exhausting, but necessary. One evening, I decided to take a different approach. One organized a small family dinner, cooking dishes I had learned Alex's parents liked over the past weeks. I prepared the table carefully, arranged flowers, and invited them with warmth. The atmosphere was tense at first, but as the evening progressed, small smiles appeared, laughter was shared, and I felt a subtle shift. They began seeing me not as an outsider, but as someone genuinely invested in their sons' happiness and the family's well-being. I realized that acceptance was not a single event, but a gradual process. It required consistent effort, genuine emotion, and subtle communication. It was a delicate dance between being present, being patient, and asserting authenticity. I started focusing on these principles daily. Every interaction, every shared moment became an opportunity to strengthen bonds. There were moments of vulnerability too. I missed my own family terribly. I missed the comfort of familiarity, the warmth of my childhood home, and the absence of judgment. I would often call my mother, sharing tears and frustrations. She reminded me that these challenges were temporary and that my strength and perseverance would eventually bring harmony. Her words were a source of strength. I also discovered my own resilience. I learned that emotional endurance, patience, and careful observation could transform tense situations. By being consistent, respectful, and genuine, I began seeing subtle changes in Alex's family. His mother started engaging in longer conversations, sharing memories and advice. His sister included me in daily activities, laughing at shared jokes. Even his father, though still reserved, began acknowledging my efforts with small compliments. During this time, I also strengthened my relationship with Alex. We would share moments at the end of the day, reflecting on interactions, discussing challenges, and planning subtle strategies to improve family dynamics. Our bond deepened through shared purpose, understanding, and love. I realized that marriage was not just about romantic love, it was about partnership, strategy, empathy, and emotional intelligence. As weeks turned into months, I started feeling more integrated. I could participate in family discussions without fear, offer advice when appropriate, and celebrate small victories with genuine happiness. I learned to navigate subtle cultural expectations while staying true to myself. The journey was not easy, but every challenge overcame became a testimony to patience, resilience, and love. I also learned the art of subtle persuasion. There were disagreements, moments of resistance, and occasional cold behavior. But I learned to address these calmly. I never forced acceptance. Instead, I created situations where trust and respect could grow naturally. I discovered that true influence comes not from arguments or insistence, but from consistency, sincerity, and emotional intelligence. By the end of the second part of this journey, I had grown stronger, more patient, and more confident. I learned that love is not just about passion or romance. It is about strategy, endurance, empathy, and the willingness to navigate complex relationships with respect and understanding. My efforts began yielding results, and I could sense the slow thawing of tension within Alex's family. Convincing and emotional breakthroughs, Jessie's strategy. After weeks of trying to integrate into Alex's household, I realized that patience and observation were only part of the solution. I needed a plan, a strategy that was gentle, thoughtful, and consistent. I knew that forcing acceptance would backfire. Instead, I decided to focus on building genuine connections, creating trust, and showing my dedication through meaningful actions. The first step was understanding each family member individually. Alex's mother had a nurturing side, but she was cautious and protective. Alex's father was skeptical, strong-willed, and traditional. His sister was social, inquisitive, and sometimes judgmental. To connect with them, I began tailoring my interactions carefully, observing their moods, preferences, and even unspoken cues. One morning, I decided to start small. I prepared a breakfast that included Alex's mother's favorite dishes. I didn't just cook. I paid attention to presentation, the aromas, and even little notes, expressing gratitude for everything she had done for Alex when she saw the effort. I noticed her eyes soften slightly, a small smile breaking through the habitual reserve. That day, I realized that small, thoughtful gestures could open doors that words sometimes couldn't. With Alex's sister, I took a different approach. She loved storytelling, and I joined her casually in conversations about her day. laughing at her jokes, and sharing my own anecdotes. I didn't try to dominate the conversation. I simply listened, contributed sincerely, and respected her perspective. Slowly, she began inviting me into other social interactions, and our bond grew naturally. Alex's father was the most difficult. His demeanor was serious, and he rarely gave approval easily. I understood that actions, not words, would be my path. I started offering to help with tasks around the house, gardening, minor repairs, or organizing items. I asked for his guidance, showing respect for his experience. He noticed my willingness to learn without arrogance or complaint. Over time, he began nodding in approval and even offering small compliments. It was a slow process, but every small sign of recognition was a victory. There were also moments of confrontation. One afternoon, a miscommunication led to a tense discussion. I felt frustrated, but I reminded myself to stay calm. I spoke from the heart, explaining my perspective without blame, expressing my love for Alex, and emphasizing my respect for his family. The conversation ended with mutual understanding, not complete agreement. But it planted seeds of trust that would grow gradually. Throughout this period, Alex remained my anchor. We would spend quiet evenings reflecting on the day's interactions, discussing approaches, and supporting each other emotionally. He never pressured me to change who I was. Instead, he reminded me that authenticity, patience, and consistency would eventually yield results. His belief in me strengthened my confidence. I also realized that humor was a powerful tool. Shared laughter broke tension, eased skepticism, and humanized me in their eyes. I learned to notice the small, lighter moments, an inside joke, a playful comment, or a humorous observation about daily life. These moments created warmth where there had once been distance. Another key strategy was empathy. I tried to see their world through their eyes, their fears, hopes, and expectations. Understanding that Alex's parents were protective because they loved their son allowed me to approach situations with compassion rather than resentment. I adjusted my approach, respecting boundaries while expressing myself calmly. There were challenges along the way. On some days, the coldness returned. Conversations became curt, and I felt isolated again. But I didn't let setbacks discourage me. I reminded myself that trust is built over time, and consistency matters more than immediate approval. I documented each interaction, noting what worked and what didn't. My journal became a blueprint for subtle improvements and a reminder of how far I had come. One pivotal moment occurred during a family gathering. I decided to share my story not as a speech, but as a heartfelt conversation. I spoke about my love for Alex, my respect for his family, and my desire to be a positive part of their lives. I didn't ask for approval. I simply shared my truth. The room was quiet, but I could see subtle changes, the softness in his mother's eyes, the attentive posture of his father, and the warm smile of his sister. That evening marked a turning point. After that, the dynamics began shifting more visibly. Alex's mother started including me in planning family meals, asking for my opinion, and even smiling more openly. His sister invited me to social outings, seeking my company genuinely. Alex's father began acknowledging my efforts and occasionally sharing advice. I realized that trust and acceptance were no longer just my goal, they were actively unfolding. I also focused on reinforcing my presence with small traditions. I would prepare surprise meals, remember birthdays, and participate in family activities. These gestures weren't grand, but they reflected thoughtfulness, care, and dedication. Slowly, the family began treating me not as an outsider, but as someone genuinely invested in their son and their household. Through these experiences, I discovered something important. Love after marriage isn't just about the two of us. It's about building relationships, navigating social expectations, and creating harmony. It requires emotional intelligence, patience, and the courage to maintain authenticity while accommodating others. One day, Alex's father invited me to help with a minor home project. It was a simple task: painting a wall and organizing a cabinet, but the act carried symbolic significance. It was an acknowledgement of my willingness to be part of their world. I felt a sense of accomplishment and pride. The small victories accumulated, shaping the foundation of acceptance and respect. I also strengthened my bond with Alex. We celebrated milestones, quietly completing a challenging week, gaining small recognition from his family, or simply sharing a heartfelt conversation. These moments reinforced our partnership. I realized that love isn't just emotional connection, it's teamwork, strategy, and support in navigating real-life challenges. By the end of this period, I had transformed the household dynamics. There were still moments of tension, but the warmth, acknowledgement, and trust were growing. Alex's family began including me naturally in conversations, activities, and decisions. I felt a sense of belonging, a feeling that had been absent during the first weeks of marriage. I also recognized my personal growth. I became more patient, empathetic, strategic, and emotionally intelligent. I learned to navigate difficult relationships gracefully, to assert myself without confrontation, and to create trust through consistent, genuine actions. The challenges that once felt overwhelming became opportunities for growth, reflection, and deeper connection. This phase of the journey taught me that acceptance is earned, not demanded. It requires subtlety, consistency, and understanding. It requires observing, learning, and adapting without compromising authenticity. It requires the courage to face skepticism, resistance, and emotional challenges with calm determination. And finally, I realized that love, patience, and empathy are transformative. When combined with genuine effort and emotional intelligence, they can dissolve resistance, heal skepticism, and build lasting bonds. Alex's family no longer saw me as an outsider. They were beginning to see me as someone who belonged, someone who genuinely cared, and someone whose presence added value to their lives. This was a breakthrough, not the final victory, but a profound step toward harmony. The journey was far from over, but the path was clearer. I knew that continued patience, consistency, and understanding would strengthen these relationships further. I had learned that persistence, empathy, and authenticity could overcome even the coldest barriers. Acceptance and empowerment, Jessie's triumph. After months of careful observation, patience, and strategic effort, the atmosphere in Alex's house had changed significantly. The cold, distant responses that once dominated every interaction were now replaced with subtle warmth, occasional smiles, and genuine conversations. I realized that my persistence and empathy had begun to bear fruit. The journey was far from over, but the barriers were breaking, and the foundation of trust and acceptance had been established. The first sign of real change came one quiet evening. Alex's mother invited me to help prepare a family dinner, a traditional meal that she usually handled alone. I was surprised and honored. She guided me through each step, sharing her family recipes, and I listened attentively, following her instructions carefully. As we worked side by side, I noticed her tone softening, the occasional laugh escaping, and a sense of camaraderie forming. That evening, I understood that consistent effort, genuine respect, and patience could create bridges where none seemed possible. Alex's father, who had been the most difficult to win over, began including me in discussions about household decisions. At first, he observed quietly, listening to my suggestions without comment. Over time, he started offering small approvals, sometimes even asking for my opinion on minor matters. It was a subtle shift, but it meant the world to me. He was acknowledging my presence, my perspective, and my contribution. The hardest skeptic had started to trust me. Alex's sister, who had once been cautious and judgmental, had become one of my closest allies within the household. We shared jokes, stories, and mutual advice about daily life. She began inviting me to social outings, treating me as a friend rather than an outsider. Her acceptance felt like a breath of fresh air, a signal that relationships could transform when nurtured, with patience and sincerity. Throughout this period, Alex remained my anchor, my confidant, and my partner in navigating family dynamics. We celebrated each small victory together, whether it was a smile from his father, a compliment from his mother, or a shared laugh with his sister. Our bond deepened through collaboration, mutual support, and shared purpose. I realized that love after marriage extends beyond romance. It is about partnership, resilience, and teamwork in the face of real-life challenges. I also learned the importance of gratitude. I expressed appreciation for Alex's family openly, acknowledging their guidance, support, and eventual acceptance. Gratitude reinforced positive interactions, creating a cycle of mutual respect and warmth. It reminded me that relationships flourish not just through effort, but through recognition, acknowledgement, and sincere appreciation. By the end of this journey, I had not only earned acceptance in Alex's household, but had also gained a profound sense of self-confidence and empowerment. I understood that challenges are inevitable, but with patience, empathy, and strategy, they can be transformed into opportunities for growth, understanding, and harmony. Looking back, I realized that love after marriage is a journey of partnership, resilience, and strategic empathy. It is about navigating challenges, creating trust, and fostering connection. It is about balancing individuality with harmony, expressing oneself authentically while respecting the perspectives of others. Alex and I now share a home filled with warmth, mutual respect, and genuine connection. His family engages with me openly, laughs with me, and includes me in their lives. We celebrate victories together, support each other through challenges, and continue to grow as a family. The transformation is not just in their acceptance, but in the deep, abiding trust and love that now characterizes our relationship. I learned that true courage is not always about bold actions or grand gestures. Sometimes, it is quiet perseverance, gentle strategy, and unwavering sincerity that change hearts and build lasting bonds. Love, patience, empathy, and authenticity can overcome even the most resistant barriers. As I sit now in our home, reflecting on the journey, I feel a deep sense of fulfillment. The path was challenging, emotionally exhausting at times, but ultimately transformative. I emerged not just as Alex's partner, but as a stronger, wiser, and more empowered individual. I had learned the art of navigating human relationships, the power of subtle influence, and the value of genuine connection. This journey taught me that love after marriage is not just about being together. It is about building a life of mutual understanding, respect, and emotional intelligence. It is about transforming challenges into opportunities, turning skepticism into trust, and fostering warmth where coldness once prevailed. Alex and I now face the future together, stronger, more resilient, and more connected than ever. We know that life will continue to present challenges, but we are prepared to face them as a team, guided by love, empathy, and the lessons we have learned. The journey of acceptance and empowerment continues, but the foundation is solid, built on months of patience, strategy, and unwavering sincerity. I am proud of what we have achieved. I am proud of the growth, the resilience, and the love that now fills our home. I am proud of the bonds we have strengthened, the trust we have nurtured, and the harmony we have created. The journey was long, but it was worth every step. And now, as I look ahead, I know that life is full of possibilities, growth, and love. I carry with me the lessons of patience, empathy, and strategic kindness. I carry the strength of having navigated difficult relationships with grace and the confidence that love, authenticity, and perseverance can truly transform lives.